Today we are talking about this full supermoon in Gemini happening December 4th, 2025. This full moon is bringing in themes of what I like to call holy contradiction. So we're going to get into what this full moon is illuminating for you, as well as navigating some of the medical astrology piece as it pertains to our bodies, some herbal allies, and an Akashic oracle reading for your sign. And I encourage you to tune into your rising sign as well as your sun sign. Hi, I'm Vanessa Rodriguez, your resident intuitive guide, Akashic channel, and mentor to healers and mystics walking the edge of change. And this is the Feed Your World podcast. If you're listening on audio version only, I encourage you to hop over to our YouTube at Wildly Rooted Spirit. You're going to tune into some specific oracle readings for your unique sign, and the cards are just beautiful. So I encourage you to check that out. Let's get into it. With any Gemini moon, we are highlighting general themes of communication, choices, perspective, curiosity, learning, travel. And this is the last full moon of the year of 2025. And what a year it has been. And I feel that 2026 is a totally different vibe, but very juicy. This last year and moving into the spring of next year of 2026 really does feel like we are crossing bookends here. There's a closing of chapter and opening up some new upgraded timelines in our experience. This full moon is happening on December 4th, and this is at 13 degrees of Gemini. And with every full moon, we have the moon opposite the sun. So while the moon is at 13 degrees of Gemini, the sun will be at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, this is a super moon, which means that it's closer to the earth. It's big moon energy, big illumination, heightened emotions, revelations, maybe some physical sensitivity as well, as the moon is connected with the body. We also have some nodal activation here with the north and south node. The moon and the sun are square, the nodes at 13 degrees of Pisces and Virgo respectively. So we're going to get into what that might bring out with this lunation for you. And there's also a grand mutable cross happening. So this is not just the last full moon of the year, but it acts as a kind of checkpoint. There are still themes here around clarity that have been weaving their way through the past several lunations. And once again, in a different kind of way, a pressure cooker of choices and bridging us into the energies of the solstice as we move deeper into December. We got a lot going on in the mutable signs, but first let's take a look at 13 degrees of Gemini. So take a look at this in your chart. What house does it fall in? What are the themes that are connected with that house? This is where information is arriving. There might be some conversation shifting, things that we're talking about, that we're learning, that we're thinking about, decisions that are beginning to crystallize, maybe finally, mental patterns that are being revealed, especially at the subconscious level with Mercury in Scorpio, which we'll get into in just a moment. But there's a culmination of something, or perhaps a completion or a highlighting of something that is revealing itself. So Gemini themes, Gemini is very much connected to the mind, communication, learning, logistics, travel, daily movement, choices, socializing, and what's on your plate. So this full moon is highlighting, there's this sense of, man, there's a lot going on. There's maybe too many choices, too many tasks, clearly holiday overload. We have just moved through Thanksgiving in the US and the whole Black Friday stuff, which I feel like is always kind of an energetic overload, whether you're into it or not. Either way, there is a definite stimulation and perhaps overstimulation with family or friends and travel. Like, this time is just so busy. And there's a lot of social stimulation as well. What I'm getting with this moon is that there is a pressure to make a choice, to choose, and to choose quickly. At least it feels that way. And a need to be very discerning and not just give your automatic yes. So we're going to take a look at what are the ways that you can do that, because this is not just about the mind. This is about the body and the emotional realm when we go deeper into the energetics of this full moon. So we have the medicine of multiplicity, if you will. This Gemini full moon at 13 degrees is happening in the second decan of Gemini. And the decan is 36 parts, equal parts that go around the zodiacal wheel. And so in the second decan of Gemini, this phase is ruled by Venus and Mars. What a match. So duality, for sure. Contrast, for sure. Holy contradiction. Creation and destruction. This sweetness and sharpness. There's this softness and yet grit. So this is the part of the zodiac that says you could do many things, but you can't do everything. And you're not meant to fit into any sort of box, whether it's a box that others have put you in, society has put you in, or you yourself have put yourself in. Here, we are really confronting this tension between the roles that we have carried, maybe our entire lives, maybe as part of a lineage, and the parts of ourselves that don't neatly match or fit into those boxes. It's this place where the identity splits and yet overlaps. There are maybe two callings tugging you at once, or you realize you're not just one thing, you're several things. The mind can really struggle here with categories as the soul has already outgrown identities, outgrown labels. When we look at what is written in the ancient texts and imagery for this decan, we see Agrippa talking about one man relaxing with a pipe and the other bent in labor. So this encapsulates it really well, right? There's this sense of relaxation and levity, and yet responsibility and toil living side by side together. There's this sense of humor and heaviness, the juggler and jokester that we know with Gemini, and also the worker and the deep thinker. So this decan is bringing forth that contrast, because contrast is also one of the best ways that we learn about ourselves. We learn through contrast. We learn what we like when we learn what we don't like. We experience things that are really harsh or that we wish to not experience, and that helps us to develop a sense of what it is that we do desire. It's interesting because I have been a guide with various hats, so being an intuitive guide, a nutritionist, a holistic healing coach. With all of those hats, in all of my years of like nearly 15 years of doing this work, one of the things that I've noticed is that most people don't really know what they want. And it's very often through contrast, by experiencing the things that you know you don't want, that help to inform your understanding of what you do want. So there's something about this particular decan, this experience in this full moon, that is helping to illuminate the right choice for us in the moment based off of that contrast. And it's not with the mind, although the mind will play a role in helping us to understand the whole picture. This decan also brings forth themes of truth and yet sarcasm. So there's like this kind of inside joke quality, it seems, with this. Beauty and abrasion. Again, that like Venusian kind of energy of tenderness and beauty and harmony. And yet Mars coming in with that edge, with that abrasive quality. We also see under this full moon that the question, if we have any, becomes, how do you honor the parts of you that don't fit into the box, that don't match, that don't go together. You're like oil and water. How do we accept and integrate all of ourselves and let them know that they all belong? Now, this decan and this moon isn't here to resolve the tension. So that's where it could get a little uncomfortable, because this is more about integration. This is about working with the tension. It reminds you that your complexity isn't a problem. That tension is not a problem. And it's helping us, even though in the moment it could feel like, I feel like I have 99 problems, right? But if we go deep with it in that scorpionic way, because Mercury is in Scorpio, which we're going to get in a moment, if we allow ourselves to fully be and immerse ourselves in the contradictions, in the complexity, then we understand that it's not a problem, and we move beyond the problem paradigm and allow it to show us, like a map, who we are and who we are becoming. So we can use this full moon to release any identity, obligation, or expectation that demands you shrink or shapeshift or fit yourself into one singular version of yourself, because you are multidimensional, my dear. And so this is where your contradictions reveal your wholeness. There's almost a permission slip here to be all the things and to try that out and see how that feels for you, giving you permission to be this and that. Now, with the sun at 13 degrees of Sagittarius, Sag is really about expansion of the horizon, the wide horizon of seeking truth. And the sun is currently traveling with Venus in Sagittarius as well as Mars in Sagittarius. These two are the rulers of this decan. So there's this interesting dynamic that's happening here, this push-pull quality, because Gemini is like wanting to get into the minutia. Gemini is about all the things and all the information and like all the details, whereas Sagittarius is big picture. It's not about the details. It's about expansion and understanding the big picture. So there's something here where the rulers of this decan, Venus and Mars, being in the opposite sign of Sagittarius, opposite this moon, are looking at this moon and us dancing with this full moon and almost providing us, holding that rope of tension so that we can walk that tightrope, right, across and be with the contradictions even within ourselves. So I really feel held with this full moon, even if we're feeling like we're juggling or we're going back and forth. There definitely feels like there's a holding for us to be able to do that. And I also feel like there is spiritual meaning making with us. Sagittarius is also very much connected with Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, being in Cancer as well. There's something about honoring the spiritual journey with this lunation and what it's bringing out for you, as well as the emotional, tending to the emotional. So not just with Scorpio, which again we'll get into, but with Jupiter in Cancer, it's like bringing this always bringing in this sense of, okay, how can I double down on the care, on the nourishment, on supporting the inner emotional realm that I swim in each and every single day, and that informs my reality as well. So while we are handling or maybe it doesn't feel like we're handling anything, but we're working with the details and the choices that we are being presented in this lunation with Gemini, I feel that Venus, Mars, and the Sun are holding us in Sagittarius, holding us and shining their light on us, telling us the truth is here. The truth is available for you. There's a truth that is being revealed in your dance amidst the many details and many choices. And so paying attention to that and allowing yourself to do that dance, to be on the dance floor with these various choices. And so speaking of choices, there's this karmic choice point with this grand mutable cross. We have the sun and moon square the nodes. So the nodes are at 13 degrees of Pisces, that's the north node, and 13 degrees of Virgo, the south node. So Virgo, south node. So the principles of the nodes are south node is typically decrease. So think decrease, release. And north node is increase. When we look at the Virgo south node, again, look at which house placement this is in your particular chart. Virgo is very much the healer. This is about service, devotion. We can look at old work patterns, the ways that we have shown up in service. What have we been in service to or devoted to? Any kind of perfection loops that might be there. Obligations. Are we doing things out of obligation and guilt? Are we burning out? Like, what are the burnout patterns that are showing up here? These are the things that we're letting go. And there's also this piece around I should, and really taking note of where are you saying that in your life, especially when it relates to the Virgo house in your chart. What feels like, man, I have been devoting myself to this thing. I've been shooting myself all over the place within this particular situation or relationship or context. And maybe it's time to make a big shift and let something go, to decrease something in that area of your life. Now, when we look at Pisces North Node, this is increase in what it is that you are experiencing or that you desire to experience. In Pisces, very much about the spiritual realm and soul-led choices, trusting the unseen, perhaps making some intuitive leaps of faith. This is where emotional truths may come in, greater spiritual support and structure, especially with some of the planetary alignments there, and ultimately surrendering to the unity consciousness, God consciousness, Christ consciousness that is available to us in the Piscean area of our chart. So there's this tension, a feeling of, well, if I choose this, then I'm somehow letting someone down, or I'm letting this community down, or this group down, right? Or my family down. Or if I follow what feels right for me, I might mess something up, and I don't want to do that, right? Or maybe it's, well, I have these details, but I feel like I don't have enough information. I don't have enough details to make a decision and to move forward. But the thing is, this full moon is demanding a choice anyway. So even a non-choice, even a non-movement becomes a choice. So this is where I feel the sun, Venus, and Mars are holding us, is in really anchoring to what feels the most true for us in that moment. Now, when we look at Mercury, who is the ruler of Gemini, and so the ruler of this lunation, Mercury is the hidden driver that is in Scorpio at 22 degrees Scorpio, freshly direct. So Mercury is in a water grand trine with Saturn, who's in Pisces at 25 degrees direct, Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces, stationing direct on December 10th, and Jupiter at 24 degrees of Cancer, currently retrograde. This is very interesting because we're seeing all the waters being lit up, but it's harmonious, right? So it's almost like Mercury, the ruler of this lunation, is calling in the support from the planets in the water signs, this harmonious support that's about restructuring and ending of chapters and shifting things in that area of our life, those areas of our lives. So beneath this scattered noise of this Gemini moon that might be on the surface or the periphery, there's this deep emotional ride and ultimately clarity, because this full moon is illuminating and culminating something within that is rising. This Mercury sees what has been suppressed, what has been hidden. Mercury in Scorpio, digging up, hearing it. Mercury hears what the unspoken things that are in the airwaves, that's in the frequency. This Mercury is seeing what has been suppressed, because Mercury in Scorpio digs to get that information. So Mercury is bringing to light what has been suppressed or hidden. Mercury is hearing what has been unspoken, but is in the frequency, is in the field. So Mercury here can attune to that. Mercury is also connecting the dots and the pieces, and turns intuition, takes all of that intuitive understanding through Scorpio and brings it into strategy. Perhaps there are some revelations around hidden motives from others, as well as hidden motives within your own self. So pulling truth, again, Sagittarius, from your depths. This is the, I can't pretend that I don't know anymore. You know, it's so often I feel like we use I don't know as kind of a default response when something feels hard to reckon with or to juggle, to navigate, to make a choice. We say, I don't know. And it's not that I don't believe myself or others when they say I don't know, but what I attune to intuitively is that they do know. But often it's an inconvenient truth, or it's something that is going to completely rattle and shake their experience of reality. And so their subconscious is creating more resistance and tension that makes us feel like we don't know, or that saying and declaring I don't know is kind of like a release, right? So we're surrendering some level of control. What I have to say to all of this is that this is not about the mind. We are not thinking our way into clarity. This is not how it works, at least with this lunation. You are feeling your way into it. And that may mean feeling the resistance. Because one of the things that I include in a lot of my programming and my teachings and guidance through mind shifting and the subconscious element here is that we got to lean into anything that we've previously been resisting. And that's usually where you're going to find the truth. You're going to find the clarity and the answer that you've been seeking this entire time. So there is this duality at play, even in the experience of this holy contradiction nature of this lunation and in the Gemini decan. We have that Gemini energy of like very head in the head, nervousness, maybe like mental ping-ponging. What if I'm wrong? What if I make the wrong choice? Probably overwhelm with choices or with thoughts or with energies in this holiday time as well. Maybe there's the logistics, the tasks, the deadlines, Mercury's direct, so like we've done a lot of review and we're like ready to move forward on stuff, the social noise. But then we have this foundation and rulership with Gemini. We have this foundation bed, pool of the emotional body, of Mercury and Scorpio, of this water grand trine. And the sun, the ruler of the sun, as part of this, Jupiter in Cancer. So this is what's going on beneath the surface, which ultimately matters more. The private processing that you're doing, the intuitive understanding and knowing, the ways of knowing. But intuitive knowing and sitting with things really demands space and time and moments where you are not consuming, you are not overthinking, you are tuning in, you're dropping into the heart, into the body. It's those unspoken truths that your body carries that you can feel in the waves, in the frequency, in the air, without anybody saying a damn thing. And it's the emotional clarity that eventually leads to the mental clarity piece. This is actually what I want. This is who I am. I'm this and that. So the mind is not the leader here. The emotional body is. And I encourage you to drop into your body, drop into your heart, drop into the waters, the sacred waters within your body. And allow it to move and don't force it to be one thing, but ride the waves of what's going on internally. And through that experience, you will have some level of truth arise. Speaking of truths, we have Mercury opposite Uranus. Uranus is currently in Taurus. So again, it might be a shocking kind of revelation or a truth bomb, secrets revealed, or sudden awakening and clarity, disruptions to old narratives. There's Uranus is another planet that is really demanding of the truth coming out, and in a way that usually rattles us awake. So there might be some of that going on as well. Notice how your body feels somatically, energetically. Tune in to your nervous system. I mean, Mercury rules the nervous system as well. So there might be some heightened nervous system agitation and also heightened dreams, psychic sensitivity, sleep disturbances. I've noticed all of the above for myself. And so bringing in the allies and the support that you need is going to be really important. Coherence practices, bringing yourself into heart-mind coherence, breath work, stillness, nature, earthing, rest, saying no, like being in alignment, body, mind, soul. What does that actually look like in your life, especially with your words and your communication? Not overbooking your calendar and thinking you could be all things for all people, even though you're multidimensional. And also body forward, body talk, body-led decision-making processes, tuning in there as well. I feel like ultimately, what is the desire with this lunation? It's freedom. And what does freedom mean and look like for you? It's freedom to be whoever the F you want to be, to live the life that you desire, to make the choices that you desire or that are in alignment, right, with your soul's highest truth, to be free from the shackles of old dynamics that don't serve you, of obligations that feel more like imprisonment, freedom from any kind of experience or systems that are oppressive. And very often, the oppression is in our mind, right? Like we can also, I'm not saying that societal oppression or the systems of oppression external to us, outside of us, are not real. What I'm saying, though, is that we also have systems of oppression within our own mind. And we can find a lot of freedom by walking out the prison door, understanding that the key was there all along. As we get into the medical astrology portion here, we're looking at Gemini, ruled by the planet Mercury, as we mentioned, also an air sign, mutable. So mutability has also been a theme here, as I'd mentioned. Mutability is changeability, it's adaptable. But in the lower expression of mutability, it's kind of like not really knowing who you are, because there's this shape-shifting quality there. Now, when it comes to the body, as we're speaking to the body level, the tissue state connected with an imbalanced Gemini energy is tension and constriction. Now, we see this very often with the nervous system. Like, what causes the tension? What causes the tension in one's muscles and the fascia? It's usually, well, if we don't have the foundations of nourishment, of course, like poor nutrition and poor nourishment is going to cause a level of tension as well as dehydration. But it's the nervous system that causes the tension. The body systems in connection with Gemini include the hands, the fingers, the arms and the shoulders, the lungs, and the nerves and the nervous system, as I had mentioned. So when we look at imbalances, potential imbalances and dis-ease, when it comes to an imbalanced Gemini, this is where we would see any kind of issue or challenge with the lungs. So bronchial issues and complaints. We might see asthma, issues with breathing. We can obviously, with the nervous system, any kind of nervous system disorder or chronic fatigue. We could see some stiffness in the shoulders, in the breathing patterns, very shallow breathing. We might feel pinched nerves, some issues with the nerves like hypersensitivity or damage to the sensory receptors. We might also see things going on with speech and with hearing, as Gemini and Mercury being connected with communication and the organs of communication. Helpful practices for imbalanced or weakened Geminis would be bringing to spoken word and form or written form that which is within you. So journaling, open book journaling, automatic writing, rage journaling, right? Like speaking from this place of connection, first tuning in and authenticity, and then writing out what is within, putting to words, pen to paper, with the hands, with communication, with words, very helpful for Gemini energy. Meditation, prayer, mindfulness is also incredibly helpful because so often Gemini can be too busy up here and really needing to cultivate stillness to allow things to land and the pieces to come together. There are many beautiful herbal allies for Gemini. Some of my favorites are the aromatics like peppermint. Peppermint is one of the best ones for Gemini in terms of like a guardian herb. We also see sage and ginkgo. So sage being very much connected with opening up the throat chakra and communication, and ginkgo being connected with the mind and brain function. But my favorites are really the support for the nervous system. As always, I recommend every single lunation bringing in some sort of nervine. So oats, avena sativa in any and all ways are really great here. Valerian is also lovely and one of my favorites that I have worked with. Poppy, California poppy can be great. And skullcap, which skullcap I've talked about in previous episodes, one of my absolute favorites. And I'm going to touch on skullcap in just a moment. But one ally that came in that isn't necessarily ruled by Gemini or Mercury or connected with it. However, there was one plant ally that came through really strong for this full moon as I attuned to the Akashic records for this lunation. And honestly, it makes perfect sense, even though technically when we look at the different literature as it pertains to astroherbalism, this particular plant isn't necessarily directly connected with Mercury or Gemini. And I have a deep relationship with this plant, which I feel is perhaps one of the reasons why it came through strongly. But that is holy basil, aka Tulsi. Now, when I tuned in and asked Tulsi, why are you showing up? What I got is, well, we have this moon happening in Gemini, ruled by Mercury, connected to the nervous system and the lungs. opposite a Sagittarius sun, ruled by Jupiter. Under this massive wave of mutability, mutable water, and spiritual dissolution, we're having Neptune finishing Pisces. This is a moment where the mind, the heart, and the spirit are all trying to integrate at once. Or not trying, they are. And Tulsi meets all three layers. Tulsi came to me for this. Perhaps also because I have been working with and drinking a beautiful variety of Tulsi, and this one is from Banyan Botanicals. And I don't have any affiliation with Banyan Botanicals. I'm not getting any kind of kickbacks or anything like that. But I did at some point teach for Banyan Botanicals, which is a beautiful Ayurvedic company that provides lovely remedies. They have a farm where they grow their Tulsi and other herbs. And I was a teacher for their apprenticeship, their internship on the farm. And I received this beautiful ritual Tulsi pack that came with 4 varieties. And so Tulsi and I love Tulsi, I love me some Tulsi, we have a relationship. However, I am much more air and vata. And what I find is like the energy of Tulsi is very much upward and outward moving. This is a classic Jupiter signature. And I am a being ruled by Jupiter as well. So sometimes I find that certain Tulsis bring me to out of body, right? So it brings it up and out. And that can be really helpful if you have a scattered or foggy mind, or if you are too in and downward in your being, or like kind of stagnant here on Earth, and you need a little bit of upliftment and stimulation. Tulsi, in I feel all varieties, is really beautiful. But I love that they have, Banyan in particular, has specific varietals that offer different energetics for each Tulsi. So while most Tulsis really bring me up and outward, they do have 2 that I found just amazing, and that is centered ritual Tulsi and earthy ritual Tulsi. These 2, like when I muscle tested for myself, which I usually do before any kind of supplementation or strong herbal formulations that I'll be taking in, I'll muscle test myself. And I tested well for the earthy and the centered, which are 2 different varietals. And they are just incredible. They come in these little medallions like this, and you drop them in, and it is completely an immersion in a Tulsi ritual. So if you're interested in a Tulsi, I highly recommend you check out these new ones from Banyan Botanicals. Holy basil, also known as Tulsi, is one of the most sacred plants in the Indian tradition in Ayurveda. In Sanskrit, its name translates to the incomparable one. So it really highlights the importance in Ayurvedic medicine and in Indian spiritual practice. Now, as I had mentioned, Tulsi is this upward and outward in its energetics and its effects, whereas skullcap, if you're needing a little bit more of that inward, downward, and grounding effect, skullcap is where it's at. And you can even bring those 2 together to make a balanced experience and support for your nervous system. So just walking in a little bit deeper with Tulsi for you. Tulsi belongs to the mint family. It's incredibly aromatic, intelligent plant that moves chi, it clears stagnation, it wakes up the mind while soothing frayed edges. And it can be relaxing and stimulating at the same time. It has that uplifting quality and clarity, clarifies without sedation. It can be warming and drying, and it's definitely pungent, aromatic, and sweet. Tulsi is a multitasker, it's multidimensional, so it is perfect for this Gemini 2 Decan moon that is really asking us to reconcile the complexity and contradictory needs that we have. So the nerving relaxant, yet nootropic, carminative, yet stimulant, expectorant, and that adaptation. It's an adaptogen and rasayana. So Tulsi is that rare combination of a relaxant and uplifter and protector, and addressing both tension and stagnation, as well as the psycho-spiritual. So Tulsi carries the energy of the sattva in Ayurveda: clarity, harmony, devotion, purity. These are things I feel that are very much in connection with Venus as well. So working with Tulsi feeds the holy within, but only when you consciously meet Tulsi halfway, right? Tulsi is not going to do all the heavy lifting for you. So this is a very Jupiterian plant, and you feel it, as I'd mentioned. It's connected to spiritual awakening and openness, uplifting the heart, restoring faith, and opening up the mind beyond the self. I feel Tulsi is especially helpful for anxiety that's woven in with mental spiraling, and also grief or trauma that keeps one looping and kind of stuck in a particular realm. Also brain fog and this like heaviness kind of feeling that we can have within the emotional realm, or spiritual depletion, feeling disconnected, difficulty trusting your own intuition. Tulsi is really helpful in clearing the clouds and the sky for you so that you can see. I highly recommend you play around with both Tulsi and Skullcap, the pairing of the two, because while Tulsi moves upward and outward, uplifts the spirit, opens up the mind, Skullcap helps to bring that downward, inward energy that some of us may need in this busyness of the mental realm, or that Gemini energy, and really helping to ground us and calm the noise within. So together they create this clarity and coherence and focused calm and presence and spaciousness while supporting the nervous system. If you have a relationship with Tulsi and or Skullcap, I would love to know. Leave a comment below and tell us a little bit about your connection. All right, we are now ready for our all signs reading. Remember, I encourage you to tune in to your rising as well as your sun sign. So the difference between the two, I would say your rising sign is very practical, and you'll probably make this connection and it'll feel like, yes, this is absolutely it, because it's our lived experience. Our rising sign is the ascendant, is our archetype. It's our avatar here, that the personality that we are playing in this earth stage, if you will. So a lot of the mundane aspects of our life, or what we experience in the story, the book of our life, is very much connected to our rising sign. Now, our sun is connected with our soul essence. So if you lean in and live more from that place in your truest essence, then you'll find that the sun sign readings are going to be also highly beneficial for you and accurate. And I find that it's very often connected with your work or career or legacy, because your sun is also part of that purpose and what you are here to do and where you're here to shine. Okay, so let us begin. And for the oracle readings, I am opening up the Akashic records for the collective, as well as tuning into the Wildwood Tarot. This feels very Gemini moon for me, and also the lovely human who gifted this to me is a Gemini rising. So I just felt like this was the perfect deck to tune into. Okay, so here we go with Aries. We are starting with you. And Aries, we have the ancestor. See that beautiful card? That's actually the cover here of the box. So lovely. Ancestor. Okay, so let's tune in for you. What I'm getting is that so much of the work that you've been doing, Aries, is ancestral healing work, whether you are intending for it to be that or not, because there's conscious ancestral work, ancestral healing work, which we actually did quite a bit of in October. If you want to tune into my Ancestral Alchemy podcast episode, and lean in there. But this is telling me I'm receiving that through your lived experience and forging this new path and trail that you have been. That is the ancestral healing, and your ancestors are with you. There is something that, oh, okay, one of the things that they're telling me is that they're speaking to you, and they have been speaking to you through nature, especially through animals. So if you have, especially lately, connecting with animals, seeing certain birds, or if you're out in the woods, like deer, hawk, I'm getting hawk energy as well. But they're speaking to you through these animal allies and through plant allies, through your connection with nature. So if you felt disconnected from nature or felt like a longing to reconnect in a deeper way, I highly recommend that you do, and you make the conscious effort to make that happen for yourself, because there's some messages that are available for you through your ancestors specifically. And the other thing they're telling me is that you yourself are your own ancestor. So if you look back they're showing through the mind's eye down into the heart, the portal of the heart, connecting with the ancestor that you were for yourself, and the version of yourself that is wise, that has a 360 view. They're showing 360 view, and able to guide you in the parts of your life where you're feeling are a little bit dark, or you're blindfolded, or you have blinders on. And it would be helpful to have some guidance. And I'm hearing whispers. It's like I'm hearing, so whatever clairs that you have that are your primaries, it may not be that you're actually hearing whispers, but how do whispers show up in your intuition? Perhaps it's a soft knowing, it's a nudge. Your body wants to move in a particular way. This feels about movement, choices that you're making, which makes sense for this particular lunation. That your ancestors are available, and you yourself as your own ancestor guiding you. And I'm also getting that you can connect with, there's like some sort of physical anchor, like perhaps like a talking stick or a rattle or a stone, something that is physical, tangible, that can be an anchor in connection with that version of yourself. Perhaps you can even do like a meditation or a ritual where you connect with that aspect of yourself and receive the guidance in that way. Because when we tap into those intuitive fields, we go beyond space-time, right? So we literally could connect with those versions of ourselves. That's what I have for you, Aries. Taurus, you are next. And remember, tune into your rising and or sun. We have the Ace of Stones. The Ace of Stones. Okay. The foundation of life. So let me tune in. Oh, okay. So this is multidimensional. I feel like all of these are going to be highly multidimensional because of the nature of this moon. So stick with me. Buckle up. First of all, you are the foundation stone. You are the foundation stone for yourself, for your family, for your community, for if you're in service work, for those that you're in service to, for your company or organization. Like, there is something about your very essence and being that is a foundation stone. And that feels very, on point with the Taurian nature, and like the fixity and the stability and reliability of Taurus in general. However, there's something here around, there's reconnecting back to that sacred stone that is the foundation of your life. That is that eternal foundation stone within you, that touchstone within you. What is that for you? When you tune into that essence, the core of your being that grounds you, that roots you, that anchors you into your highest truth, your authentic self. What is that for you? And if you can identify it, touch it, be with it, connect with it, there's something magical that happens that almost like restructures, recalibrates, and brings you back to a center point that is, I'm getting, and yeah, sometimes I get these words like unfuckwithable. There's like this energy of nothing can move you. You are a mountain. There's also something here around being this foundation for others without being the one to do the things for others or to do the work, the labor for others, right? So it's more about an energetic holding pattern, like you're holding the field with your essence and not so much about doing, like the work, because that is the responsibility of the other and you don't want to take that away from them, even if they're begging you to, right? Because you're the one who, can get the shit done. You're the responsible one. You're the one that's going to make sure that things happen. And so it could be easy for others, especially in this energy, to just like sort of dump on people like you. And what I'm getting is like, that's a no. That's a no-go. And how can you re-anchor to that foundational touchstone within yourself so that you can hold the field for others, which is ultimately what they desire and what they would like, but that's what's in support of everybody involved, right? Instead of like taking the responsibility away from them or like taking too much on your own plate because you are capable. I hope that's helpful for you, Taurus. Okay, we are tuning into Gemini. Gemini, this is your moon. So let's see what comes through. Remember, tune into your rising and or sun. In Gemini, we have 4 of Stones, protection. 4 of Stones, protection. Okay, so there's that image. And let me tune in here. There's a lot going on and being activated for you. I mean, clearly this is the lunation in your sign. And so this is not about, like, I think I touched on already so much about what you might be journeying through, what might be going on, the holy contradiction and all of that. But one of the things that I'm getting in terms of protection, it's not protection from a place of fear of like, evil things that are out to get you. It's actually cultivating sanctuary for this softer bits, these younger aspects of the self, this little deer, this doe that is here, this baby deer. And the other thing is, like, I get sanctuary because while there is this field of protection, what is required to ultimately have this sense of safety and sanctuary? It's that your nervous system feels safe and protected. It's having that level of protection. So what are the ways that you are going to set that up for yourself on all levels? Physically, cultivating a space that feels protective and grounding and safe for you, as well as emotionally. Who are the people that maybe you need to take a break from that disturb the waters a little bit too much, at least in this time? Energetically and mentally. And of course, spiritually, I feel like that inherently goes without saying with everything that we talk about. But it takes conscious effort to create and cultivate a space or a structure that feels protective for yourself, because it often requires you to shut things out and to say no, to set up those boundaries, right? So if that person who caused the emotional upheaval or disruption constantly trying to get in, right, a boundary crosser, you have to uphold those boundaries. You have to set them up even stronger. But you also have to, one of the things that I keep getting is, what's your cozy place? The hygge, that sanctuary, where is that for you? You need that right now. Go there, whatever it takes, maybe even if it's just 5 minutes in the tub, if you have one, or a foot bath, or being in a backyard, a front yard, a park, somewhere in nature. But there's something here about cultivating that, even making one of your rooms in your home a sanctuary. It's really needed in this time for whatever deep work that you're doing with this lunation and beyond. So I hope that's helpful for you. Cancer, you are next. Okay, Cancer, we have the world tree. The world tree. There's that beautiful image. And let's go ahead and tune in. What I'm getting is, it's interesting because here we have Jupiter exalted, moving through your sign, but currently retrograde. And what I'm getting with this world tree is this energy of it's this sacred journey and dance through this labyrinth that it's leading up to this profound being that is the world tree. And as you're navigating the labyrinth, which can feel like, where am I going? There's a little bit of disorientation that I'm feeling. Yet it's a sacred act, a prayerful path that you are walking. And so there's this level of faith that you have, that no matter what direction you're in, or that sort of that sense of disorientation, that you know you are being guided to something higher. And that ultimately, when you navigate your way through this labyrinth, which is it's not a labyrinth about making you feel lost, or the disorientation is somehow bad or not a good thing, or to keep you lost in the labyrinth. It's a journey that follows the path of the soul. It's like you're following, the way they're showing it to me, as you're following these footsteps, these imprints that were made before you, that your soul left. And so you're as if, they're on a path or on sand. And so you're following those footsteps and placing your feet into those footsteps that your soul left for you. And following through with trust and faith through that labyrinth, and making it ultimately to this world tree. And this world tree is a portal that connects you to all timelines, to all points in time of your own soul's existence, that also is connected with God's source creator, the divine, and yet rooted, deeply rooted in Mother Earth, in this sacred journey here on Earth and for all of your lifetimes. So this feels like a pilgrimage of sorts that you are on in this time. And I feel you so close to this world tree. But you're still in the labyrinth on the path. So it's just about continuing with that faith, with that trust, even maybe closing your eyes for a portion of it and attuning to the energy, because the world tree is there already available for you. It always has been. It always will be. And that this journey and pilgrimage outside of that tree, back to the tree, is part of your evolutionary process. And that world tree is anchoring back into that divine existence and connection of being wildly rooted and divinely connected and integrated. It feels like a very, very holy experience. And pilgrimage is the word that keeps coming up. So even if maybe you feel like going on a pilgrimage, that'll bring you back home into that world tree in some way, on some level of your being and in your life, then perhaps lean into that. I hope that's helpful for you. Leo, you are next. Please tune into your rising and or sun. Leo, we have the Mirror. Card number 12, the Mirror. It's a beautiful mermaid, sea maiden, sirena. Okay, so let me tune in for you. This feels like, well, it's interesting because I feel for both Cancer and Leo, you're always a part of every lunation, right? Because the rulers of your sign are the moon and the sun. And so Leo, for you, the sun. And where is the sun? The sun is currently in Sagittarius with the ruler Jupiter being in Cancer. And we have this water trine and like this water energy and the mirror and the reflection. So what I'm getting for you, what they're showing me is like, this is a time, it makes so much sense. Even looking at this, the sun and the moon sort of reflecting each other and yet holding each other, seeing each other there. This is a deep, deep journey into the subconscious and emotional realm for you. There is something here that this is highly healing and cathartic. And it may not be all sunshine and rainbows. It can feel like there are certain aspects of your being that are dying. And perhaps some parts of your life experience or even past desires that you are letting go of, because there is an internal shift that's happening. And so with this lunation, what I'm getting is really utilizing this to reflect back to you as if you are going to a sacred lake and looking upon the waters and the moonlight, the full moon shining upon the waters. And what is reflected back to you is what is happening internally on a deep, deep subconscious level. And that sometimes those truths that arise from those depths of those waters, of the emotional waters, of the subconscious waters, are not cute. Sometimes it's like, that's what I see, or that's what was inside, and so it may feel like there's a part of this journey where there's some resistance in even looking at the reflection or like accepting what you see. And what I'm getting is like, that in itself is also part of the journey, not to judge yourself about that, and allow the natural course of healing to take place. Allow yourself to surrender to this journey and the guides of the sun and the moon and this reflection. Allow it to work on you. And that these aspects of the self that are ultimately not you or not aligned with the deepest level and truthful level of your being, they're meant to float away or to dissolve and to trust that. But that getting there may not feel linear or as pleasant as you would desire or like. This also is interesting because while Leo, you're very much energetically oriented outward, visibility, although I know like not all Leos feel that way because there's definitely other stuff at play in your chart that I see with my Leos who don't like to be seen. Maybe you have a lot of stuff in 8th house or 12th house or like Scorpio energy, right? So there's other stuff at play. But what I'm getting here is that this is not a time to be in the spotlight with this. Like, this feels definitely like an internal process. Maybe if you feel called to do some of that processing as part of your work with visibility, and on a platform, like perhaps if it's healing for others, but for the rest of you, this feels like this is behind closed doors. This is your own thing, your private space and your private work that helps to support that solar energy that you have, right? To ultimately make it as true and authentic as possible. So I hope that's supportive for you. Next, we have Virgo. Remember to tune into your rising and or sun. Ooh, Virgo, we got 2 of bows, decision. So there's your card if you want to tune in to that. That is a powerful image there. Okay, so tuning in. I mean, Virgo, you are also ruled by this Mercury, right? And so while Gemini is getting a lot of the highlights here, clearly because it's a Gemini moon, this is extremely potent for you as well. Because we also have the nodal action here with the south node in your sign. We have Mercury in Scorpio. I mean, I think even just decision, the fact that this is called decisions, like this is a choice point. So when you tune into what is it that you have been circling? What is it that has been on the chopping board? What has been in this, like, this or that, this or that, this, or maybe the multiplicity that I've been talking about with this lunation? This is a time to make the damn decision. And knowing that, even like I mentioned before, that non-decision or non-action is an actual decision. It's a decision that you made. And so not being afraid. I mean, look at this fierceness, and even like the fire next to me, the fierceness of this card, this energy. I mean, he looks like he's been through it, right? You have been through the ringer, Virgo. Some of you. And this energy is like taking hold. This is such a watery, airy moon, and yet this is fire energy. This is fire energy. And that's that Sagittarian element here, this like Jupiter Sagittarian energy that is really being heightened. What in this time, how can you take advantage of that fire and run it through your system to make that decision that you need and to burn away anything that is not only not serving you, but that is false. And I'm hearing like judgments, negative self-talk, projections from other people, and then I'm just seeing you being like blah, blue, blue, blue with your fire, like psh, 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 disintegrate, right? Incinerate that stuff. Give it to the holy fires as an offering. And with that, stepping boldly forward in your choice and your decision. And when I ask, how do you know? How does she know what decision to make? And I heard the fire in her heart will guide her. So the fire in your heart is going to guide you forward in whatever decision it is that you are needing to make in this time, Virgo. So there you go. Hope that is helpful for you. Libra, you are next. Remember to tune in to your rising and or sun sign. Okay, you got the Knight of Vessels, Eel energy. Knight of Vessels, Eel. So let me tune in here for you. So much water energy with all of these, most of these cards. And this is one of definite movement in the waters, as the eel is representing here. Movement through these waters, these emotional waters that are coming up for you, that you are experiencing. This also feels like highly protective for you, the eel energy, and focused movement. You know where you're going, even if it feels like you're moving through a lot emotionally. This is around cultivating the acuity through the felt sense and navigating these waters from that place of harmony that you ultimately desire and have in your design. Being a Venusian being the sacred scales. So it's honoring whatever is going on within you. What is the balance point within that? So if you're feeling like big feelings here, but then big feelings here, and they kind of feel contradictory, where's the meeting place? What's the still point or the balancing point? And moving from that place, if that makes sense. This also feels very directional and moving forward. I feel like you are moving forward on something, but it's like from a place of emotional acuity and attention to the decision, from not like an emotional reactive kind of decision, but allowing yourself to move through all of the feels that are coming up in this time. And then once you find that still point, then moving forward from there and not being afraid to make that decision, to move forward, as long as it is in sync with that harmonious frequency and path that you would inherently know. You trust that you know, even if you have these other voices, like that's not enough or it's too much, like there might be these kind of this tension point of like going back and forth, or wanting to overgive, or then maybe having resentment from previous overgiving. That's all the emotional, like those are the waves, right? And also, like, I'm hearing things in the airwaves as well. We want to drop into the body, be with what is stirred within, and then finding that balance and still point, and taking that, making that decision and moving forward. Because it does feel like taking action as well, like moving forward on that. And also the other thing for some of you, I feel like it's not even necessarily you taking that action and moving forward. It's almost like life is moving you there. Like the context or situation or whatever has been going on is like now converging and moving you forward in a particular direction. And your job is to swim in a balanced way with that, right? Like kind of like this dance that is really fluid. So I hope that is supportive for you. Scorpio, you are next. Scorpio, you have the wheel. The wheel, card number 10, the wheel. So there's that image. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. This feels like, to me, when we even tune into the wheel of fortune and this wheel, but what I love about this wheel is that there is a loom here and there's a weaving. So destiny is not something here that is completely fixed. And like when we go beyond this perceived linear space-time, and we move into other realms of being that we also inhabit beyond this physical experience, it is there that what we would call our will, our own divine will and choices, help to spin this wheel of fate. So they work together. And what I love about this card is it has both the sun and the moon here. You see? So we have this full moon action happening with the sun and the moon, these lunations with the waters, so much of the water energy that is running with this lunation. But these waters are still. This is a stillness. This is a still point for you where deep, deep change is taking effect. And it's not just from the wheel of fate that is spinning, but it's of your own weaving. It's all of the work that you have done up to now and what you continue to do, because this weaving is not complete. Of course, because you're still living, right? But like for this particular time and this reading, it feels like there are certain shifts, choices, alchemy work, like you're alchemizing things that are assisting you in this weaving. And so it's part of the work here, if there's any so-called work, is to identify, open your senses, your awareness, and your eyes to the patterns within your own life, the patterns within others, the patterns within the collective field, and to notice those, because those are going to help you and inform you and your choices that you make that help to weave the rest of this fabric on this loom. So you're an active participant. This is a participatory process, but it requires awareness and stillness, which you're incredibly good at perception, Scorpio, right? So it's utilizing those gifts of perception. I feel like with Mercury direct in your sign, this definitely is in connection with what you have gleaned, the information that you have received, with like Uranus also, like maybe some sudden revelations with that, and weaving that into your the life that you are co-creating for yourself, that you are choosing to live. Because the way that I'm seeing it is with each choice point, and this comes through active participation and awareness of like the patterns and the movements and the cycles, it's being able to shift timelines, which is a very simplistic way of saying it, but it's ultimately aligning yourself frequency-wise to that timeline that is ultimately aligned with your highest truth and where it is that you desire to go and what you desire to experience. But it does require that stillness and that pattern recognition, and no longer avoiding or turning a blind eye to those things. It's really utilizing all of the information that you have collected so far and working with that and weaving these. I'm even seeing like each individual line here as like a timeline, and you're just weaving in together to create this unique experience that is yours. So this feels very big and, kind of hard to grasp, but I hope that this is supportive for you in going in deeper and cultivating that stillness to do this. Sagittarius, sun and or rising. And we got quite a bit going on here for you astrologically with the sun in Sagittarius, as well as Venus and Mars, the rulers of this decan. Woo! Okay, we got one that flew out. We have Page of Arrows, Ren energy. Here's the beautiful image. Page of Arrows, Ren. Okay, so let's tune in. There's something here about movement and stillness. So we see the Ren here, this really beautiful, youthful energy, and with Page is like this divine feminine energy of the messenger. And with this card, I'm feeling like there is something around movement within the stillness of the winter. And I know that we aren't quite at winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere just yet, but this feels more connected to the season of winter that you are experiencing in a particular aspect of your life. So perhaps this is in your relationships or in your community or your communication or your work or your health. Like there's a winter season that's happening. And I feel that in that particular area of your life, there's a sense of gentle fortitude that I'm feeling with this card. I'm feeling like the wren is this harbinger of protection and care and gentleness during a time that can feel harsh and still and quiet. So there's a hopefulness with this energy. There's also this reminder that this winter time is needed and is part of this, the natural cycles of the seasons that nourish the ground for the coming spring after, when everything begins to awaken and grow again. So how can we be gentle with ourselves in this, what we might experience as a winter time, which is a very holy time, and reframe it as a kind of necessary still point or in-breath that nourishes the aspects of the self and that area of our life for the birth of new life to come, that perhaps is even more aligned with what dies or what goes away or melts away with the winter. I'm also hearing listening to birdsong, listening to your bird friends and messengers, and paying attention to their flights and their flight patterns, because there's the dances that they do, and sort of the almost like sacred geometry. There's something to their movement that speaks to your soul. And there's something with the messages that you receive through them from the divine and from your highest self. So I hope that's helpful for you. Capricorn, we are tuning into your sign, rising and or sun. We have 9 of Bows, respect. 9 of Bows, respect. Okay, so there's that card. And tuning in. This feels, ultimately, this feels like doubling down and anchoring into self-respect first and foremost when it comes to respect. Because they're showing me certain aspects of your experience and like what's going on internally for you, and it feels very slight and nuanced, or even tricky or hidden. These parts of the internal dialogue or experience or self where there might be remnants of lack of self-respect. And it may not be related to what you are currently experiencing, but something that you have inherited from like familial line, ancestry, society at large, also maybe past versions of yourself in this life, as well as on a soul level. Where are these points where there have been transgressions against the self? Like you have transgressed against yourself, a lack of respect within the self. And I'm not saying that you lack respect for yourself. It's not what I'm saying. But there's something here around those aspects of the self that are requiring full attention and respect, that aren't receiving it in the way that they need to or desire And this feels like an internal process. So while it can be reflected externally, whether it's like, I don't know, maybe you have moments where your partner says something or does something that you perceive as disrespectful, or maybe your children or your parents or friends or the local cafe barista or whatever. Like, you have these moments where you feel like it feels like there's been a transgression of some kind, and that I feel this energy of like, kind of like I'm offended, and so there can be that even within the self, like without you consciously being aware, there could be these subconscious voices or currents. I'm feeling it like currents. Oh, that you gotta like drop in and tune in to see what are those currents. And this feels like the moon to do that for you, that lay the bed for the foundation of any possible transgression, against the self, or that like is reflected outside of myself by others. And what are the ways that I can cultivate that deep, deep, deep respect? Because what it ultimately comes back to is respect for your own divinity, that you are a divine being, that you are inextricably linked with God, source, creator, and the divine masculine, divine feminine, all that is sacred, you are connected to. And so these transgressions, these what can be felt as disrespect in some way, is ultimately a form of, a very subtle form of rejection. This feels very deep, Capricorn. And I'm not saying it's rejection of the self, although that may be happening for some of you. This feels very insidious, very deep, very subtle, but profound when you can tap into that and suspend any judgment, suspend any like, that's not me, or, oh, that's me, it's terrible. It's like, let go of all of that and just be in that witness consciousness of like, what does feel like disrespect? What does feel like rejection? What does feel like a transgression within my own being? What are the things that I say or do? Start paying attention to the subtle, super quiet thoughts, automatic thoughts that happen, or even in your own reactions. When somebody says something or asks something of you, or a reaction to how somebody else is reacting or acting. There's the clues laid out through all of them. And so this is really asking you to cultivate that deep, deep, deep acceptance and respect for the divinity within, which then will inherently be expressed outwardly and in your relationships and your external experiences. So I hope that's helpful for you. Aquarius, you are next, and please tune into your rising and or sun sign. And you have 10 of Stones, home. And here's your card, 10 of Stones, home. Okay, so let's tune in for you. Aquarius, I feel like, now they're bringing me straight back to the astrology. And when we tune into the ruler of your sign, which is Saturn, and Saturn at the late degrees of Pisces and about to go back into Aries, and will be a part of a very significant conjunction with Neptune in Aries coming up. there is something so profound for you happening here. Not to mention Pluto in your sign for quite some time and literally changing up so much that is happening in your sign. This feels like perhaps it may have felt like home has been a moving target. Like, what is ultimately home for you? And it may have felt like home has been a moving target in that maybe it has shifted and changed for you, your sense of home, your meaning of home, like where you literally live, but also who is home. And it all of the external experiences of home are extensions of the sense of home that you cultivate within yourself. And so this really speaks to that as primary, cultivating that deep, deep sense of home by perhaps connecting with Saturn and that Saturnian journey from the end of a complete cycle of the wheel and like journeying, going through this deep, deep journey through Pisces, this like spiritual journey, and dissolution and restructuring of your spiritual practice, even in your spiritual orientation. And doing this dance back and forth between like the next chapter and like yet retrograde and coming back into Pisces, and then now moving forward and going into Aries when Saturn does, it's the like new chapter, new book of your life. And that it's reaching that point of potentiality and culmination where I feel like this lunation is helping to assist in putting all of the pieces of the puzzle together that you have been accumulating and using those as the bricks to build your home internally first so that it can be expressed externally. This feels like a really, really beautiful homecoming in general for you. And that while it may have felt extremely challenging, hello, Saturn, yes. Challenging, contractive, a struggle maybe at times, I'm really seeing this as like such a fruitful journey when you come into that like clean, it just feels almost like a clean slate. But it really does start with cultivating that deep, deep sense of home internally. And what is that? When I ask like, well, what is that? How do you know that you have it or you're cultivating it? It's this like communion, deep, deep communion with all aspects of yourself, feeling rooted and grounded, unshakable, this unshakable quality that no matter what your circumstance or where you are, you have that foundation of home within the self. That's how you know. And it feels like such a beautiful homecoming experience for you. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you. And, you know, I also feel like with Pluto in Aquarius and so much that is going to shift in our external world with technology and AI and the collective experience and perhaps revolutions and who knows what else, that this home, this internal home is absolutely necessary and a gift to navigate, I feel, incredibly massive shifts for the collective in our world and our evolutionary process. So I hope that's helpful for you. Pisces, we are doing your sign. Remember, tune into your rising and or sun. And let's see, whoa. Okay, we got the Ace of Bows, Spark of Life. There is the card. Powerful card there. Ace of Bows, Spark of Life. Okay, so let's go ahead and tune in. Whoa, so there's a lot going on here, Pisces. Well, first they're showing me the chart, right? So coming back to this lunation, this is a reading for this lunation. The ruler of your sign, Jupiter, is exalted in Cancer. And Jupiter, though, is also the ruler of Sagittarius, where the sun currently is as part of this full moon. And that's where it's interesting, like the bow is also the Sagittarian bow. So it's almost pointing to your sibling, right? The co-rulership here with Jupiter. With being Sagittarius and that fire energy, that spark of life. So looking at the Sagittarius part of your chart and what house it rules, this is huge. There's huge shifts happening for you. We have the North Node in Pisces. We have Neptune and Saturn making their final rounds in your sign. And then they're entering this fire sign, Aries, come the beginning of next year. And it is this so much that has been moving through on a spiritual level and orientation, moving through your sign to ultimately, I'm hearing like round out the edges of this sacred wheel that is the collective wheel, but also the wheel of your life as we move together and individually into this next playing field. And I feel that is really beginning in 2026 and 2027. And so 2025 really being kind of the rounding out of that wheel, finishing up the deep soul level work that we've been doing in your sign, that connection to Christ consciousness as well. And that all of that is leading up to and providing that kinetic energy required for that spark of life, that biochemical reaction, that kinetic act. Like I'm just seeing the twigs of the bow and like even the release of the bow with that friction causing the fire, and that fire not only illuminating but showing the pathway forward and landing at the destination. So it's a spark at first. So that spark of life is like, it's a new beginning. And I feel all of the work that you've been doing is leading to a new beginning, not just for you, but for everybody, for the collective. Because I feel like your sign has been such a huge part of our collective evolutionary process as we enter these really, really big years of change. And I'm asking if there's anything that you need to know or do in this time in connection with us. And they're just showing me you sitting back and enjoying the show. And that show is also an internal process, right? So it's almost like maybe it's sitting back in meditation. Maybe it's sitting back with your back on a tree in nature. Maybe it's sitting in a body of water and being so present and opening yourself up to be filled with the beauty of all that has transpired, of all that you have gleaned and learned and moved through, and to enjoy the show and enjoy the ride as we move into this next book with that spark. So I hope that's supportive for you, Pisces. And that ends our Akashic Oracle readings. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to hear how these are landing for you. Any ahas, any insights, anything that resonates, please share below in the comments. And thank you for tuning in. We have beautiful Akashic circles and our Akashic Q&A over inside my community, Bloom, for intuitive healers, mystics, light workers. If you are looking for support in these really big times, I encourage you to come on over to our community and join us. It is potent, it is beautiful, and it is deeply nourishing to connect with other highly gifted, intuitive, spiritual healers, light workers, and those who are here to be of service. Let's come together in reciprocity and exchange and mutual support. I look forward to meeting you inside. All links are in the show notes. Once again, thank you for your trust. I'm sending you lots of love and full moon blessings. And until next time, be well.